Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on, of course, with the Halloweenish reviews on the weekdays. And that's right, guys. You read the title, you know what I'm now about to review next. And as was teased in the last Halloweenish review, I'm sure you guys probably figured it out. Well, here we are. You read the title, and yeah, because you saw the thumbnail, you know what this is. Something Guillermo del Toro. Yep, and like I did mention when teasing this, that, anything that del Toro has done, it's always perfect to watch around Halloween time. Wouldn't you think so, too? And yeah, because definitely, this is one of those films of del Toro's that's definitely, Halloweenish and, well, a lot of horror to it, and yeah, everything that this movie has to offer, straight from the genius mind of del Toro, it's really good. Yeah. And not to mention, this one film of del Toro's is celebrating its anniversary. So yes, guys, I am now finally reviewing from 2015 Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. Yes, Crimson Peak. Yeah, again, this was really good. I thought this was a very interesting film of del Toro's. It's always, great to watch anything of del Toro's, and, wanting to, anybody wanting to check out more of del Toro's work and such, his style of filmmaking, all of that, always a joy to see on the big screen, and his love for filmmaking, horror, all of that, and, yeah, with what Crimson Peak has to offer, yeah, it's great, because with its storyline, its great cast of talents, the suspense, the horror to it, everything, just, yeah. And, yeah, I had, of course, been, following this movie for a little while, and always been, meaning to check it out, along with some of del Toro's other films, and now, finally have. And to sit back and watch this in all of its glory, just, yeah, amazing. Yeah, because a lot of amazing things that came from this that I enjoyed, and a lot of stuff that I really didn't know what to expect, but yeah, it was amazing. And, the scary parts that, I don't know about you, because maybe some of you probably got a little bit jump scared, but for me, I didn't. No, I just sat there, I was like, oh man, because I was enjoying it rather than being, say, oh geez, no. Yeah, just its style, the horror to it, it's amazing. Yeah, I'd say probably Crimson Peak would probably be in my top favorite films of del Toro's, and maybe the same would go for you, but yeah. Yeah, but just overall, because with the style and theming to Crimson Peak being in the, early 20th century with the great cast of talents, del Toro's direction, all of it is just fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so now with the first things I've had to say about Crimson Peak now out of the way, now as always, for me, read the description / the story. After marrying the charming and seductive Sir Thomas Sharp, young Edith finds herself swept away to his remote Gothic mansion in the English hills, in England, of course. Also living there is Lady Lucille, Thomas's alluring sister and protector of her family's dark secrets. Able to communicate with the dead, Edith tries to disappear the mystery behind the ghostly visions that haunt her new home. As she comes closer to the truth, Edith may learn that the true monsters are made of flesh and blood. Alright, so, now with reading the description / the story out of the way, I have a few fun facts to share, and a little bit of background as much as I have, but yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, del Toro, like, one of his big inspirations for, bringing to life the movie itself, Crimson Peak, was when he originally was attached to direct the Hobbit trilogy, and at that time it was just going to be 2 movies. and he and the rest of the crew were scouting locations through New Zealand and, new places to find, and that would be perfect for the settings and such of the Hobbit films. And while staying in New Zealand, at one point, Del Toro had a paranormal activity/experience, hearing murderous screams and calls, all that, and then it just struck him that what would be in Crimson Peak with that opening and such, and yeah, that's very interesting, because with what happened with Del Toro while originally attached to do the Hobbit trilogy, he would get some ideas and inspiration for one of his next projects, which of course being this. And also, a bit of the casting, because one of the main cast members, Jessica Chastain, she originally was offered the role of Edith, but when she read the script, she was more fascinated and wanted to play Lucille, Thomas's sister, and yeah, she just found it more interesting with that role, and yeah, Del Toro, he agreed, and thus she landed the role. And also, the original choices to play Edith and Thomas, I almost said the actor's name, well, yeah, because Benedict Cumberbatch and Emma Stone, they were the original choices to play those characters. However, with Del Toro and whom he considered officially to play those roles, and yeah, until I mention them momentarily, but yeah. So that's a little bit of fun facts and background I wanted to share, so yeah. Okay, so with that out of the way, now let us dive in / break down the film itself, if you dare. So, with the movie opening, just already, what a great way to start off, where the opening logos, they're in red. Yeah, going with the tone and vibe of Crimson Peak. I love that, and I just love when movie company logos, they're very creative, and they sometimes would be different and to go along with any movie and such. You know what I mean? Just yeah. So, anyways, and one of the first things we see is one of our main characters, Edith, whom, yeah, we see, during the winter, and she's got like some blood on her hands. Well, basically, that is what we will be seeing literally towards the end of the movie. And it's just like how, best example, the next Del Toro movie, after this, The Shape of Water, well, if you recall, the movie starts off where we see our main character underwater, sleeping and such, and yeah, I think you get what I'm saying. Just, yeah, take that as an example. Those kind of openings in those movies, and Del Toro having some of that in his movies. Anyways, so, we come to a flashback, basically, yeah, because young Edith being played by young Sophia Wells, her and everybody else, they're at a funeral service that's basically her mother's in 1887. Sadly, she got sick and died, and a few days later, well, at one point, young Edith is visited by the ghost of her mother. A ghostly figure, which being her mother, touches her and warns her to beware of Crimson Peak. Yeah, foreshadowing the danger to come. And by the way, because Edith's mother, being played by the body performance and with the practical makeup, Doug Jones. Yeah, Doug Jones had to be in this movie somewhere because, yeah, Doug Jones being one of Del Toro's top Lucky Charms and always doing something creature and so on in practical makeup. He's pretty much the top king of practical makeup and such. Yeah, and he plays another character whom we'll get to later on. So, yeah. So, again, I had a feeling that, we were going to see Doug Jones somewhere in this movie, and with his slender body and being in that makeup and appliance as Edith's mother, he nailed it. Just, yeah, he's such a boss at practical makeup. You would agree, too. Anyways, then, after all that, and apparently that would be the last time, for a while, young Edith would have any ghost encounter, and with the mentioning of Crimson Peak. Well, fast forward 14 years later, now having entered into the early 20th century, basically because, yeah, in Barfolio, if I said that right, yeah, NY, which being, New York, basically. We see older Edith, and her full name being Edith Cushing. Yeah, Edith Cushing being played by the lovely, talented Mia Wasikowska. Yeah, because her last name being Polish, and yeah, I did the best I could, but you know who it is, of course. Yeah, anyways. And yeah, because we've known her best as Alice from Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, and just 1 year after doing Crimson Peak, she would return as Alice in Through the Looking Glass. But yeah, we know how that turned out, and that is another story. Anyways, so basically, in the early 19th century, and in one part of New York, Edith now has become a writer and takes her manuscript to a publishing house. However, when she would meet with the publisher, he gives her some advice to make some changes to the novel and such, because what's in her book that she's written has ghosts in it, and it's recommended to her that she should probably put a love story in there, and which, as much as she didn't want to do it, she ends up doing it for like 1 or 2 pages, that's it. But then at one point, Edith would, and while working and such, she at one point has an encounter with someone whom is to meet with her father, and that being Thomas Sharp, being played by Loki himself, good old Tom Hiddleston, yeah. And first off, because, yeah, both Mia and Tom, and I know I'm going to be saying this for the rest of the cast, because, yeah, but in the case of Mia and Tom, well, both of them are fantastic actors/actresses, and, Mia, a fantastic actress, and Tom, a fantastic actor, and they were good in this, fitting so well into the world of Del Toro's filmmaking, definitely. Yeah, just each of them, like, what they bring to the characters, and especially the chemistry between them. And I think it's obvious that, yeah, at some point both of them are going to end up being a couple, which, yes, they would. Maybe you guys probably know that by now, but just, yeah. So Thomas, again, meeting with Edith's father by the name of Carter Cushing, being played by Jim Beaver. So basically, Thomas arrived at the United States to seek investors to finance his clay extraction machine, and this also being a mining project, yeah. However, because, yeah, Thomas, he did very well with the pitch to the investors and such in the United States, in New York, well, Carter turns it down. Yeah, just he flat out turns down Thomas's pitch, and with, asking, like, for investors and all that, and, yeah, it just, sadly, it didn't go so well as Thomas probably hoped for. And, even Thomas, he tried to find other investors before coming to the United States, but, everywhere he went, he had been turned down. And yeah, the United States, hopefully if Thomas felt that maybe the United States would be positive and all that, nope. Flat out being rejected. So later that evening at the Cushing's residence house, yeah, their home, well, Edith's father, along with a friend of the family's whom we did see earlier, and both him and Edith, they've known each other for quite a while, that being Dr. Alan McMichael. Yeah, I think I said that right. Being played by another great talent in this film, Charlie Hunnam. Yeah, I think if I got his last name right, but again, me sometimes. Yeah, so both Alan and Edith, they've known each other for quite a while, and man, because Alan's mother, Mrs. McMichael, there are a few times that we get of her where she's being very rude to Edith, and Alan's mother being played by Leslie Hope, another good talent in this film, and we even have the rest of Alan's family members. They don't get that much, but still, we can, of course, immediately tell what the rest of his family is like, most prominently his mother. Yeah. So, Alan is tagging along with Edith's father, Carter, and, by the way, because Carter, he too has known Alan, and even can sense the fact that Alan has a liking for his daughter, so, yeah. But Edith, she remains behind in the house, not attending to the party, and a little later, after her father and Alan, they disembark, she would have another ghost encounter after 14 years passed, seeing that same ghost that she saw being haunted, and where, the ghost of supposedly her mother still warning her about Crimson Peak, and, being freaked out and such. One of the maids, comes in, sees that she's, in front of the bed on the floor, and basically, one of the maids informs Edith that Thomas Sharp is present, and he's been standing outside of the rain for a little while. In the freezing, pouring rain. And Edith, she doesn't want to really see him, but Thomas insists, and eventually he'll be let in, and they would meet with each other. And, Thomas, he convinces / asks Edith to tag along with him to the same party that her father and Alan had gone to, and she would do so. So with them going to this party, and their presence surprises everyone there. And this is where we get our first introduction of Thomas's sister, Lucille Sharp, being played by another good talent in this film, as was already mentioned earlier, Jessica Chastain. Yep. And Lucille is not really sure about the presence of Edith and such, and that, she's with and has accompanied Thomas to the party. And not that much from, say, Edith's father and Alan especially. It's not like they interject or anything like that, but the party proceeds, and even when at one point, Thomas then teaches everyone how to waltz and such, and with the addition of holding a candle. And she asks Edith to dance with him, and, she was thinking that maybe Thomas would go for someone else, but no, he insists that it should be her dancing with him, and they proceed to do so. And, the chemistry and relationship between both of them is starting to build and build, even when, they dance for a little bit. And the next day, after the party, by this point, Edith's father, Mr. Carter Cushing, he is not very satisfied with the Sharp family, and he hires a private detective to investigate the Sharp family, and that being this private detective by the name of Holly, another good talent in this film, Bern Gorman. So he hires Holly, this private detective, to keep watch on the Sharp family, find out what he can discover about the Sharp family, because, again, Mr. Cushing senses something very off with the Sharp family. And even if us, the audience, would feel the same way, too, as he does, right from the beginning. And a little later, Detective Holly would come back to Mr. Cushing with evidence he has found, and, with what Mr. Cushing discovers about the Sharp family, it of course, this upsets him, and especially on account that, with Thomas, getting closer to his daughter, and the fact that Edith is his only daughter, of course he would want to protect her, and so on. And at another party, and to speed things up some, because, at another party, at one point, Mr. Cushing has a private conversation with the Sharp family, Thomas and Lucille, bribing them to go back to England and basically exposing them and knowing who they really are and such, and telling Thomas to break Edith's heart, and which Thomas does so. He hated doing it, and and yeah, because he was really starting to fall in love with Edith, but because of what Edith's father wanted him to do, just he has no other choice. So when at this dinner party, because well, Thomas makes the announcement that he and his sister will be departing to England by tomorrow and such, and it's a farewell and all that. Well, and when Edith, has a conversation with Thomas at one point, and because, she is upset that he is leaving, just out of nowhere. And Thomas just being hurtful to Edith, and even when he was starting to with what she was writing, her story and such, because he had read a good chunk of what she had so far written, and he even had no problem with the love story that was recommended to her to put in, just, on 1 or 2 pages. Just saying that it's awful, and she's not a visionary writer, all that, she's just a child and such, just, all this insult. And even when the other guests, including Mr. Cushing, they come in, they overhear this, they're listening to all of this. This is, it's a public scene, and, well, Edith being hurt by this just slaps Thomas on the face, and that's it, supposedly. Yeah. And, well, then it seems as though, because, well, they would disembark to England, or did they? Because not long after, say, supposedly them disembarking and such, there is one moment where we see Mr. Cushing in a bathroom of his, getting himself dolled up and all that while listening to music on an old vintage record player and such from the early 19th century, well, 20th century, that is. And he has a very strange encounter where, he asked a few people that were serving him to do something, and, well, he heard some rustling, and then at one point, this mysterious figure wearing black and with black gloves comes in, attacks Cushing, and we don't see whom this is. I mean, we're bound to know at some point, and, obviously up to the climax, but for now, we don't know specifically who it is. We can only suspect, speculate and such, that is. And, and should have seen this coming, that Edith's father would meet an ugly demise and die, because, the mysterious figure grabs Mr. Cushing and slams him right on the tip corner of the bathroom sink, smashing his face and just dropping him and just leaving him there to die while his blood drains down, and the sink overflowing. Just, what a gruesome way to go. Yeah, definitely. Even, say, when we would get a glimpse of his deceased body, and when Edith would find out, oh god, you could see a glimpse of it, and oh gosh, part of his face is messed up for sure, because it seems like that half of it's missing. Literally, I'm sure you guys probably think so too, because it is. You can just see a little glimpse of it. But and right before that, with seeing, the deceased body of Edith's father, because not long after he was killed, when we come back to Edith, well, she would receive a letter from Thomas revealing the truth to her that her father made him do all that, and realizing that, he's telling the truth and such, she then desperately goes out to find Thomas, and if he didn't disembark back to England, going into the hotel, finding where he is, the room that he was staying at. Luckily, he's still there at the hotel, and that's when they would declare their love for each other, and, well, they would officially become a couple. And not long after that, Edith would find out that, her father had been found and is dead, and when checking on his body, and they couldn't even tell if it was him, and they had to get Edith in to verify that this is the body of her father. And, of course, when she peeks and pulls back the sheets, and, her being horrified by the horrific sight of her father's deceased body, and again, with half of his face being, gone, because with what happened to him at the sink. Ugh. Even, of course, Dr. Allen was there to be there, and because to examine the body and such, but And not long after the passing of Edith's father and a funeral being held, well, Edith and Thomas, they would get married. Not to mention that we can see at one point Edith, and at the funeral service, she's wearing a specific ring with like a red jewel because Thomas's sister, Lucille, had that ring, and yeah, because Lucille being very suspicious with Thomas, and we don't know that much on what's really going on with Lucille and Thomas, and with what they're talking about, and that has to do with Edith. But, you know, Thomas confronting his sister at times about Edith, and, was gonna plan on giving that ring to Edith, and she would get the ring eventually, and at the funeral. And after all that, well, really nothing left for poor Edith in New York, and by this point, yeah, after getting married to Thomas, she moves with Thomas to England at this Gothic mansion called Allerdale Hall. Yeah, that being the name of the Gothic mansion. And is it me, or it seems like that parts of the outside of the mansion and a lot of what's inside, is it me, or did Del Toro take some inspiration from the Haunted Mansion? I'm just saying, because, I mean, if you guys know, he's a huge fan of the Haunted Mansion. And remember when he attempted to, you know, direct the new Haunted Mansion movie, which didn't happen? Yeah. But I don't know, because it just popped in my head, because even when I was watching the movie, because I was thinking to myself, yeah, and I'm sure you guys would think so too. I probably could be right, but anyways, and you can let me know in the comments section. But anyways, so, Allerdale Hall, the name of this Gothic mansion that now Edith moves in with her now husband, Thomas, and one of the other characters we see that helps out Thomas a lot, especially on account of the machine that Thomas has been currently working on right outside of the mansion. Finlay. Yeah, Finlay being played by Alex Stockwell. Yeah, and he was good. He was good in this movie. So, and then at one point, right before they walk into their new home, most prominently Edith, about to walk into her new home officially with her husband, there's a dog that approaches them, and, because Edith already having a liking to this dog, something about Thomas where it's like, he's not too thrilled about this dog being present out of nowhere. And Edith asking Thomas if they can keep the dog. And, you know, he accepts. He's okay with it. And, you know, Thomas doing the honor of lifting up his now wife and taking her inside their new home. And, yeah, because the exteriors, the look and design of the inside of the Allerdale Hall, this Gothic mansion, it's fantastic. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, another fun fact, kind of a sad one, it pretty much is, because, you know, how this mansion was built, with its exteriors and all that, it's amazing. And the fact that not long after they finished production on Crimson Peak, it was destroyed. Well, it's understandable, and it's one of those things, because not everything on movie sets and, you know, movie studios will stay there forever. And because they, you know, Universal, they needed that extra space for whatever else was going to be filmed on those ground stages, you know. Okay, but getting back to where I was, and to still speed things up some, because, well, it does not take too long. Right when Edith steps in her new home, this Gothic mansion, already the horror begins. Yeah, slowly but surely for Edith, because at one point she would notice a shadowy figure, you know, like a dress and such, you know, passing by a corner and all that, and she believes it could be Lucille. Even when at one point she catches a few glimpses of whomever it is, and if it is Lucille, and at one point getting on an elevator shaft, and, you know, by getting on the elevator shaft, it disembarks, and, well, when Edith calls for Thomas, on whom she thought it was and saw, well, Thomas makes nothing of it. And then, yeah, Lucille, we would finally see Lucille cooking something in the kitchen, and, yeah, I mean, her reaction to seeing the dog, yeah, she's, you know, apprehensive at first towards the dog. What is it about the dog specifically? They just don't like animals in this mansion? I don't know, but maybe, but we'll have to wait and see. And with what else happens with Edith, and now that she's now settled in her new home with her new husband, yep, her official husband, well, at one point, she would take a bath, but she would hear another commotion. I mean, first off, because the dog approaching Edith and wanting to play fetch with Edith, and yeah, because while in the bathtub, and she, throws the red ball, and but, she would hear more commotion and such, and just, and we of course would see some glimpses of the ghost, and and her just, getting out of the bathtub, and, she doesn't notice at all, because the ghost creeping up, and man, because this time we see the ghost with no top forehead and such. We just see the mouth, and oh my gosh, creepy. Definitely creepy as hell when you say so. And because with her hearing stuff and supposedly ghost encounters, just and it's getting more intense for her, even when at one point, because the more she would explore, and by the next day exploring more of the mansion, and when at one point she would make her way up to the attic and would stumble upon and for the first time see her husband's workshop, his inventions and all that. And, the more interactions we get between Thomas and Edith, they're very nice and romantical, even when, she's very pleased with what her hubby has made. Even when Thomas mentions that he carved toys for his sister when he was young and such, to cheer his sister up and such. And Thomas would then start to realize more that just something special about Edith, the woman he's now married, being that rare person that, you do not want to let go of. And I'm sure we can tell in the case of Thomas that, he found himself the perfect woman. He's been really feeling the true experience of love. And that's good to see. And, and then Thomas and Edith, they get a little romantic. But that's interrupted when Lucille steps in and offers some tea to them, and most prominently Edith. And, she would take a sip of tea. But the next thing we get at right after that, we would find her asleep in bed and waking up. And, Thomas is not by her side of the bed. And, this is where she would get up and roam around through the hallways. And, that white wardrobe getup that Mia's wearing. Oh, that's so good. Awesome wardrobe and beautiful costume that she wears. And with her holding the candle, especially, so iconic in this movie. Wouldn't you think so? So what else happens, and that evening, because with her roaming through the hallways, even when the dog pups in at one point, she would have more encounters with ghosts, like, one ghost that's on the other side of a room, like where, a door's opened, the ghost closed it, but then another encounter with the same ghost where it comes out through the floors of the hallway and, chase Edith at one point. Just, those sequences that take place, where she wakes up, she roams through the hallways at night, the ghosts emerge, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Because, Del Toro, he knows how to do scary shit like that. And I'm saying that in a good way, of course. Okay, but at one point, there's a moment where, Edith would go downstairs and would find herself in the bowels of the mansion, finding this very odd room, she would, one of the things that she would notice, is this chest that has this name, which being called Enola. And what does Enola mean exactly? And to Edith. And, we, the audience, at first, we don't know what that's about either, but, that's probably a clue for Edith, but, with whatever this is, Edith will soon find out, and the same goes for us, the audience. Anyways, then, like, say, the next day, well, we do see Thomas at work trying to get his machine up and running and such, that has to do with clay and all that. And, Edith wants to have a word with Thomas, but, he's very busy, even when at one point he accidentally burns himself when he was trying to get something to work through the gears, and, it wouldn't be a Guillermo del Toro movie if there weren't any gears, because I'm sure, as you know, Del Toro, he's a fan of anything gears and gadgets, and not in a creepy way, of course, him having, like, a gear fetish. It's true, I'm just saying, I'm sure you guys would know, too. But after Thomas, he would, burned his hands some, Edith would attend to the wounds, bandaging up, and through some conversations, at one point, Thomas would mention to his wife about this place being called Crimson Peak. Yep. Because what that ghost warned her turns out to be right here where she's at right now. And yeah, because she's surprised by those two words. And then Thomas explaining to her some more that because with it, why it's called Crimson Peak is because of the snow, on account of the snow and the clay of this place that combines, and take on a red color of blood and such, having that kind of color of red that's like blood, And again, Edith being very shocked by this, and there's going to be a lot more that she is wanting to and is going to unravel about, well, where she's at, Crimson Peak. Okay, so right after that, we would come back to New York, where we once again see Dr. Alan McMichael, whom starts to become very suspicious and investigates further on how Edith's father specifically died, because, well, this isn't any normal death that occurred to Edith's father, And some information that he would get, like most prominently, he would find out that, Edith's father had hired this private detective, which of course being Holly, and eventually Alan would meet with Holly and would find out from Holly, and most prominently, this of course would have to do with Thomas and Lucille. And coming back to the Gothic mansion, well, because, another time that Edith got knocked out, because obviously it's on account of the tea, and with whatever's in that tea, we find out a little later, well, once again, she would find herself in bed, she would wake up, Thomas not by her side, and she would once again roam out in the hallways at night with the candle lit up, and at one point she would come up to the bathroom, where the bathtub is that she was in, and would see that ghost again, and the ghost warning her to leave, and her being freaked out and such, she would alert Thomas and Lucille on what she saw, but both of them trying to comfort her and just, tell her that it was probably nothing, she's hallucinating and all of that, she's not feeling too well. And at one point, Thomas suggests that maybe Edith should tag along with him to the post office, and because that might help, and give Edith a chance to really get some good fresh air. Even though, because by this point, winter has arrived and such. And, but, this will be a great opportunity for Edith to do so, which she does so. So, by the next day, and when they arrive to the post office, they do their business. However, it's Edith who suggests that, with no problem whatsoever, they can stay there for the evening, because, the roads being snowed and all that, and, it would just not be a good idea to get back, because on account of that, and they do so. And in between that, because, when we come back to Dr. Allen, when he would meet with the private detective Holly, well, the information that Holly gives to Alan, basically, the Sharp family, Thomas and Lucille, they are linked to a lot of murder cases, and and other things that Alan finds out about Thomas and Lucille, not very good. And when coming back to Edith and Thomas, well, they once again get romantic and such. Thomas was reading more of what Edith wrote on paper of the novel she was writing, and just, yeah. And again, they stay in for the night at the, in the post office and in one of the cabins, the sheds, and yeah. And by the next morning, they'll be back at the mansion. And yeah, they do have a sex scene at one point. And nothing too graphic, but yeah. It's not like, there's really nothing naked, no boobs or anything like that. That is with the exception of the ghosts, okay? We do get a little bit of nudity of one of the ghosts, okay? Anyways, so, when coming back to the mansion, well, Lucille's pissed at Edith. And, yeah, because keep in mind, because Lucille, at times being very harsh to her sister-in-law, as of now, but yeah, with what happened, they didn't come back to the mansion. Lucille was left alone at the mansion, which she did not like. Yeah, she kind of lost her temper, but she did calm down, and, well, then she would then proceed to fix some tea up for Edith. And, well, accidentally, Lucille left, a batch of keys on the table, which this would give Edith the opportunity to take one of those keys that is a key to the chest she saw down in the bowels of the mansion, and she would do so as quick as she can. She gets the key, goes down, opens the chest, and with, Enola, the word that's on the chest, and would find files that has to do with some previous women that Thomas was in a relationship with. But man, once she finds out more about what's in those files and such a little later, oh boy. And yeah, quickly she goes back to her room. Lucille's trying to find Edith and calling out to her. And yeah, she would find Edith in her room, like coming down with something, just pretending to come down with something, not feeling too well. And yeah, she fixed up the tea, but Edith, she turns it down. And yeah, pretty much by this point, Edith has a suspicion that, something in that tea that's been making her, pass out, and, she would find herself awake in bed and all that. Yeah, something off about the tea. So this time she turns it down. And, well, even when she asks Lucille to fix up some cold water, she would do so. While she's doing that, Edith would quickly put the key back with the other keys on the keychain, and, luckily for Edith, Lucy does not suspect anything. I mean, she did earlier when, because I almost forgot, because when she was talking with her brother outside the mansion, he was still working on his machine, well, she would notice that one of the keys was missing. Yeah, and that's when, and from there on, so, yeah. So, later that night, and while Edith is alone by herself, she cranks up the phonograph cylinder, and basically there's recorded tapes and such, that you put in the phonograph cylinder. Yeah, because we basically, one of the voices we hear is Thomas, and she then would read what's in the files, these letters, and by listening to what's on the phonograph cylinder and reading those letters, it turns out that Thomas had multiple / previous marriages before Edith for financial interests, going for their money and so on. Yeah, especially on account of his machine, etc. But more than that. And we would also find out, and Edith as well, that Lucille had basically poisoned all of the women that her brother had been married to, putting poison in their tea. The many women that, before Edith, it was like, because, we had, there was like 4 or 5, but just, Pamela Upton, she died after drinking poison tea. Enola, we get her name, Enola Scioti, I think I said that right, she was the 3rd wife, and, well, it turns out that Enola is one of the ghosts that Edith keeps seeing at times. And Beatrice Sharp, well, another wife of Thomas's, and she got killed by Lucille with a cleaver, And another one being Margaret McDormott. I think I said that right. And her fate is actually unknown, but she's listed as a victim, so this is the only victim, which we don't know that much, but we know she's a victim. However she was killed, she sadly got killed and murdered. Yeah. And, yeah, just, like, hard to believe. And Edith, like, slowly but surely would start going through a heartbreak. The man whom she has been with and had fallen in love with is kind of not the man she really expected. But at the same time, there is something about Thomas that, you know, and as the film proceeds, there's something about him that's not really bad at all about him. But until we get there, of course, and the more I proceed, you know, with this review. Okay, and not long after she listened what was on the phonograph cylinder and reading those letters, she's out of here. But unfortunately, the poison making her weak, and even the freezing cold snow, yeah, it definitely wouldn't help either. It tops it off pretty much. Yep, she's not able to leave the mansion, and she passes out right on the stairs, and when she would wake up, she would find herself back in bed, and Lucille, she offered her something to eat and drink, but Thomas came in at a good time and just, he wanted to have a private word with his wife. And Thomas, he tells her not to drink the tea that his sister has made. And not long after that, Lucille is playing at the piano. And Thomas, by this point, he's had enough. He does not want his sister to murder his wife, where, again, as I said earlier, Thomas really felt true love with Edith. Something about Edith that went straight into Thomas and just like that. But Lucille just confronting her brother that, the fact that at a young age, he made a promise to her that they would never be separated, and even if they do so. And Thomas even was at one point considering it, but with Lucille quickly stopping him and telling him not to do it, because if by doing so, then yeah, their family legacy and what they've done will be exposed of, and they'll be done for, and all that jazz. And, well, Thomas, he sticks with his word. Just, yeah, not easy for him, but what else can he really do? Just, yeah. Anyways, but, yeah. And coming back to Dr. Allen, whom by this point, he's made his way to England, and asks some locals, close to where the mansion is, like, how to get to the mansion. And because of the heavy snowstorm, like, yeah, there's not going to be anybody to lift him a ride there at the mansion. And Dr. Allen, he has no choice but to walk on foot. He's willing to take that risk. And he even tells the people that if he doesn't come back, then he wants them to come and find him at the mansion and such. Yeah. And then right after that, well, because later that same evening, Edith, still feeling very weak, and she's coughing up blood, poor girl. She, at one point, gets in a wheelchair, and, she's really doesn't have that much strength to, make some good walking distance. And yeah, she gets in a wheelchair, hearing more sounds outside of the hallways, and she would have another encounter with that ghost, whom this time is holding a baby, because one of the marriages that Thomas was in had a baby, and the baby was murdered. Just, obviously, of course, by Lucille, sorry. And, well, Edith, now realizing whom the ghost is, Enola, and Edith asking Enola, what does Enola want from Edith and such? All that the ghost of Enola does is point her to a specific direction where, okay, because, yeah, this was unexpected, especially on the count of Edith, where, we can hear some singing, obviously coming from Lucille, but what Edith would discover is apparently, Lucille and Thomas, brother and sister. Well, most prominently Lucille, she's giving her brother pleasure. Yeah, and if you've seen the movie, weird, and just, yeah, and with what Edith discovers, and just being, obviously, understandably, horrified by what she's seeing, like, that right there does it for her. And, yeah, and being horrified, just like Edith, yeah, she leaves the room, Lucille stopping and confronting Edith, and, well, even by that point, someone has arrived at the mansion. Obviously, it would be Alan. He's pounding on the door, and, well, Lucille, having Edith by, like, at the edge of the stairs, and, yeah, she tosses her over, and, well, at one point she, like, yeah, luckily she hits one of the stairs, you know, the handrails, and, yeah, and then hits the snow. So, yeah, she doesn't die, you know, from falling. And, yeah, so she's unconscious, but by the next day, Alan is inside. He's there, attending to Edith, and when she regains consciousness, yeah, she is reunited with Alan, but also, right there in the same room, Thomas and Lucille. And, well, because when Alan at one point tells the brother and sister that he needs to have a moment with his patient, well, he whispers to Edith that, yeah, he knows what all is going on, and that, yeah, this place is screwed up, so are the brother and sister, and also the mentioning of the Sharp brothers, that's in the Sharp family, because, yeah, forgot to mention that, yeah, that was most prominently brought up. So, yeah, Alan, you know, he attends for him, and most prominently Edith, to get out of the mansion, and they try to do so, and Edith, who's still weak because of the poison, well, I mean, she manages to do so. But Lucy, of course, being there to confront and stop them from attempting to leave, and that making it clear to Alan that she will not leave. Even when at one point, she does stab Alan, and yeah, he then becomes weak and with blood spewing out. And even when, say, yeah, Lucille has her brother finish off Alan, and when the dog comes back in, and jeez, because Lucille, she kills the dog. Like, golly, I mean, something was bound to happen to that dog, right? And sure enough, yeah, it just happened. Anyways. But Thomas, yeah, he doesn't want to kill Alan, and secretly, he quietly asks Alan, like, where to stab, and obviously not to go for the heart. And Alan, realizing this, good on him, and yeah, they go, you know, he goes along with this, faking his death, and yeah. And not long after that, well, Thomas, he would take Alan down to the bowels/basement of the mansion and give Alan the details on escaping, and alongside with him Edith and such. Thomas is going to, this time, set things right and, well, basically redeem himself, right? Oh, and also, to go into more details about the basement, you know, the bowels of the mansion and such, well, because that being a, you know, very, you know, big part, a significant part of the setting of the movie, because what's in the basement is, yeah, it contains mysterious vats that contain blood red clay and the remains of Thomas's previous wives. Yeah, even when one of them is discovered by Edith, like when she opens one of them, this was early in the movie, yeah, she opens one of them up, she takes a stick and like kind of stirs, and something does emerge from the blood and all that. Oh man, creepy and disturbing at the same time. But yeah, just, you know, because the breathing, bleeding, and the atmosphere, just, yeah, ugh, just. And that was a really cool set design, you know, the exteriors of that, you know, the look of that basement and the vats, because, yeah, I mean, that's Guillermo del Toro for you. He knows how to make, you know, sets and designs look fantastic in his world of filmmaking. Okay, but getting back on point, because now we have Lucille forcing Edith to sign the papers to make the brothers' heirs to her fortune. And, yeah, this is where we find out, and could not forget to mention that, yeah, Lucille and Thomas, their mother, by the name of Lady Beatrice, yeah, Sharp, there was a portrait of her, and the ring that Edith was wearing was once their mother's. Well, Lucille goes into some detail with Edith, revealing the whole thing and such, that Well, Lucille was responsible for killing her own mother, and after the death of their mother, Lucille and Thomas made a plan that Thomas would marry off rich girls and whom do not have any families, and they would take the fortune from, any woman that Thomas marries and to finance his machine, the red and clay, all that, just golly. And with them having to kill all of the wives that Thomas married, so they would not be investigated and all that. But up to Edith, because this is where Thomas really felt something, as I explained. And when we see that early on and throughout this film, that, Thomas really felt something from Edith, and it changed him. And, no wonder, because, with him early on having married other women, and because he had trouble with finances and all that, it would lead to, that stuff. And then when it would come to Edith, poor Edith, but And, Edith, by this point, having no choice and still being weak she would proceed signing the papers. Then she would ask Lucille whom the murderer was, whom killed her father. And, of course, it turned out to be Lucille, where we do see her face, and when she was in that getup, killing Mr. Cushing. And because of this, a bit of energy got into Edith at that moment, and that's when she took that pen and stabbed Lucille right at the neck. And she tried to make a run for it, but she would have another encounter with Thomas, and she was about to stab Thomas, but Thomas assures her by calming her down that Alan's okay, and that, he does love her, and he wants to make things right, and even he takes it upon himself to destroy/burn the documents at a fireplace in that room. And, by the way, because to talk more about the cast members, because, Jessica Chastain, because Jessica Chastain, a fantastic actress she is, she was really good as Lucille. No wonder, because when she was more interested in playing the evil role of Lucille Sharp, she really felt something, and that, it shows in the movie that she was meant to play that character. Rightfully so, Who knows if she had gone with Edith. I'm sure she would have been fantastic, but, in the end, rightfully so, it makes sense that, it's Jessica that plays the villain, and Mia who plays the heroine. The protagonist, basically. So, like I said, Thomas, he would take it upon himself to destroy the documents, and even when he attends to Lucille, he can clearly see that she's been stabbed, but, Lucille can now tell that, he's about to, not really, but still kind of, betray her, break the promise and leave her, and, Lucille heartbreakingly murdering her own brother, literally, taking a knife right into his eye, going through the neck, and then that, the chest, somewhere here, and then the eye, no wonder this movie, it was one of those reasons that this movie got an R rating, anyways, unfortunately, when Thomas was about to redeem himself, and possibly, Thomas and Edith, they can have a happy life together, have their happily ever after, gone forever. Just one of those things in those movies, it's tough, but for a good reason. In movies like this one particularly. That's the sad end and demise of Thomas when he was starting to redeem himself, starting to become a hero. He gets killed by his own cold-blooded sister. Okay, and still to speed things up some, we're getting up to the climax, because Edith making a run for it, Lucille on her tail, and when, Edith makes her way down to the basement, finds Alan there, and, at one point they hide from Lucille, but then Edith, protecting and hiding Alan, and she exposes herself to Lucille, just getting Lucille to follow her upstairs, outside of the mansion, on top of the mansion, the rooftop, and, Yeah, rooftop and such, yeah, kind of. But, yeah, but overall, because, yeah, where each of them fight one another, and, well, Edith still being weak on account of the poison. Thankfully, yeah, and it's obvious that she doesn't die from the poison. Yeah, obviously she's going to be cured and healed and such, and obviously on account of Alan helping her. And Lucille, you know, trying to stab and kill Edith, you know, she makes it clear to Edith that she will stop at nothing, only if she's gonna be killed. Yeah, so at least, yeah, she does say that to Edith, like, you know, she's willing to be killed if Edith is able to. And Edith still being weak, and she at one point grabs a shovel, but yeah, still weak and calls out for help. But luckily, help does step in. The ghost of Thomas. Yep, distracting Lucille. Lucille's off her guard, and Edith goes and whacks Lucille with the shovel, killing her instantly. Twice with the shovel. Second time she hit her right on the head, oh yeah, she's done for. Yep, sayonara, Lucille. And after that, well, Edith and Thomas, they say their goodbyes. Edith stroking him on the cheek, and yep, he disappears. And that shot where we see her with her hand and, you know, having blood stains on it, that being the first shot we see in the movie. That's where we pick up and such. Yeah, that's amazing. And, well, all ends well. Both Edith and Alan, they're okay. Backup comes in, because again, Alan asked those people if he doesn't come back, then they come to him at the mansion. And yep, the mansion just being left there to sit, and as of now, for all eternity, the ghost/spirit of Lucille remaining in the mansion, and we see her playing on the piano. And yeah, one of the last lines to come straight from Edith is, "Ghosts are real. This much I know." And yeah, and that final shot of seeing the ghost of Lucille playing the piano, boom, that's how the movie ends. Amazing. Amazing way to end it off right there. Yeah. And who knows, because maybe this time, and since it was kind of mentioned where, yeah, it seems as though that Alan had feelings for Edith, maybe they can wind up being together or something. I guess, yeah, we can assume so, but yeah. You know, we're just left off guessing and such. And even if Del Toro himself established this, but anyways. Oh, and by the way, there was one other thing I forgot to mention, and that being this whole thing about, say, butterflies and moths, because basically it's a central symbol, and it represents the contrasting, if I said that right, fates and natures of the film's two main female characters, Edith and Lucille. Edith's the butterfly and Lucille's the moth, you know, light and dark. Because, yeah, a few moments where, you know, butterflies and moths are talked about, and most prominently from Lucille and Edith, and not to mention in the mansion, we see some moths roaming around the mansion. Yeah. Yeah, because fragile butterflies symbolize Edith. Yeah. More details on that, because yeah, and who intellectually, vulnerably to the darkness of Allerdale Hall. Yeah, and while the dark, formidably moths symbolize Lucille. Yeah. So that, yeah, and who thrives on the dark and cold and feeds on the butterflies, etc. So, yeah, so just wanted to mention that because couldn't forget to mention the whole thing about the butterflies and moths. So, yeah, there we go. But, yeah, what a great way to end off the movie right there. Just, yeah, Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. It's another excellent movie of his. I really enjoyed it. Everything from beginning to end. The storyline, the cast of great talents, the music and score, the suspension, the look and design of this movie, being set in the early 20th century, the costume, the wardrobe, the exteriors, the mansion, Del Toro's direction, the creepiness, some jump scares here and there, the practical effects, the ghosts, everything that was put into Crimson Peak was fantastic. The suspension, stuff that we don't know so far, but as the movie proceeds and we learn alongside with Edith what she discovers, the truth about her husband and sister-in-law, everything to Crimson Peak was excellent. And definitely it is it would definitely be in my top favorite Guillermo del Toro films, without a doubt. And again, maybe the same goes for you. And I'm giving Del Toro's Crimson Peak, well, why not? And because, you know, how much I really enjoyed this. 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. And what about you guys? What did you think of Crimson Peak itself? Did any of you get to see this in theaters? Is it in your top favorite movies of Del Toro's? Any favorite characters and with the cast members? What was your first impression on it? Your first reaction? You didn't expect what happens in this movie at first? You got up on the edge of your seats, you got the chills, oh my gosh, and holy crap, all that. Favorite lines, favorite moments here and there, just, yeah. And if it's one of those movies of Del Toro's that you'd sometimes watch around Halloween time or any other occasion and such, you know, or maybe say you have a Del Toro movie marathon. I would, just, yeah. But anyways, yeah, just overall, what do you think of Del Toro's Crimson Peak itself, with what all I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, of course, continuing on, reviewing more Halloweenish films on the weekdays. There's only 4 more left. And so, yeah, the 4th to last Halloweenish film that I'll be reviewing is something else, straight from Universal Pictures, but also from good old Blumhouse. And I'll be joined alongside with 2 friends of mine, and all 3 of us. We're big fans of what had been turned into a movie adaptation of a online video game that's horror and all that. And let's just say it has to do with a bunch of animatronics from a pizzeria. Five Nights? Yeah, you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Yeah, get hyped for that. Again, stay tuned for that. Take care, happy anniversary to Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak, and peace out. Boo!